Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Culture Hour. And your Fab Two are back together again. Well, hopefully, we think you think we're the Fab Two. So, my name is Shelley Smith. I am your culture curator and the original co-host of the Culture Hour, here with my partner,
Elizabeth Veliz. How is everybody doing?
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back here together. I wish we were sitting beside each other, but we'll have to do the virtual thing for now.
Yeah.
And I have not done this with you guys and for you guys in a while. So we definitely thought, with everything that's going on, we thought it was time for you to hear from us and to kind of weigh in on some books that we're both reading. We have some books we're going to chime in on, and just kind of talk about what's going on. But because it's the Culture Hour, we obviously want to lean in to that, whether you think culture is BS, whether you think it is simply a fly by the night word, whatever you think it is, the train has not come and gone unless you never bought your ticket. I mean, if you're not getting on the train now and realize that now, above any other time, how you're treating your employees is maybe not showing up now, but trust me, when the re-entry happens, when the new norm happens, when the stabilization and the preparation of the new thriving happens, you're going to find out how well you treated your employees, because they're either going to stay with you and they're going to love you and they're going to bring in new amazing people, or they're going to exit in droves because you didn't do the right thing and your culture wasn't strong enough and leaders weren't strong enough. So, Elizabeth, I don't care if you lean into the book. I don't care if you talk about what you're seeing, what you're hearing. I mean, you're an individual who is very well tapped into leadership as a whole, because you're a part of not only a great organization, but you're a part of so many different associations. And so many people, quite frankly, lean into you and say, hey, Elizabeth, what are you doing? How are you doing? What are you seeing? So tell the viewers, what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Sure. It's funny because before Shelley hit the record button, we were just kind of having a casual conversation, as we always do, about, it's easy to lead when things are copacetic, right? When everything's okay, when there isn't a global pandemic to deal with, right? But this is the world that we're living in today, and the world that we're going to be living in for quite some time. And it's a lot harder. You really show your true colors, right? The stripes come out when the circumstances are incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult, and you have to pivot very quickly. I am so fortunate that I work for an organization that we saw it coming. We got the early rumblings of what was happening. We put together a task force very, very quickly. We came up with plan A, plan B, plan C, plan LMNOP, to quote a friend of mine, Kim Walton, right? We came up with this plan. And then when we saw that it was coming, we saw that social distancing was going to become, hey, the governor is going to absolutely demand this at this point. We thought to ourselves, we work in an open environment. We work in hoteling cubes. People are literally sitting 2.5 feet apart from each other. What are we going to do to take care of our people so that we can continue to run the business? Mm-hmm. It wasn't, how do we run the business and our people are just a kind of side thought, right? I'm so fortunate that this group of executives, we all got together immediately. We made quick decisions. There wasn't this whole, let's debate about this and what if that and what if. It was beautiful to watch what we did, right? And we have loosened our restrictions on work from home because we had to deploy over 1,370 employees home in less than 2 business days. And we did it. And we said, hey, you've got kids at home? Listen, while our previous work from home policy was work from home is not to substitute for a babysitter, for childcare, now we're like, hey, you've got kids at home. Schools are closed. We get it, right? We get it. Do the best that you can do. Let's keep taking care of our members. Let's keep taking care of our customers. And more important, let's keep taking care of each other. And we do that by supporting each other. You'll hear in the background throughout this segment, you'll hear my 7-year-old kid in the background playing video games for right now. And before y'all start getting judgy, we did all the academic stuff this morning because I know how it is, right? Because I know how people are. You put them in front of a screen. So anyway, so we loosened up some of the restrictions, you know, and we really, I think our company did a fantastic job of focusing on the human element here so that we can drive the business results. And I'm going to tell you, Shelly, not every company that I'm hearing about, that I'm seeing, that I'm listening to, that I'm exposed to is taking that approach. And they are going to see the results of those decisions when things stabilize, right? When everybody says, hey, back to work, we can now interact with each other, we can now engage with each other, we can all redeploy back to our home offices. It'll be a little while, but eventually you're going to see a spike in your attrition. You're going to see your turnover numbers peak, and that means your costs are going to increase, your customers are going to be impacted by it, and your profit margins are going to suffer as a result of it. So I think it's just really important to stop being so rigid, right? Be flexible. One of my favorite F words in leadership, be flexible. And I think empathy goes a long way here. You know, we have had individuals in our company that have thought they were exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID-19. And we built such an amazing environment here throughout this process that they immediately reached out to us. And they were like, I'm concerned about my coworkers. I'm concerned about my team that I was sitting next to next week. Please let people know. And so from a leadership perspective, this is where the rubber meets the road, people. This is where you need to lead with gratitude, which is a great segue because Adrian Gossick and Chester Elton sent me their new book. Just came out in the beginning of March, already a New York Times bestseller. Not surprised because these guys are amazing cats, right?
Yeah, they are.
And they are. And they sent me the book, and I'm only about 2 or 3 chapters into it. But already I'm like, wow, perfect timing, right? Tell your people that you're grateful for them. Tell your people, especially the people on the front lines, our healthcare providers, our janitorial services, our environmental health services, the IT people that still have to come into work because if the IT infrastructure falls apart, we can't take care of patients. We need to constantly be telling these people that we are so grateful for them and be specific about what you're grateful for, right? I'm grateful for you. For what? For existing? I'm grateful too for that. Be specific about what you're grateful for. I'm grateful that you left your family and you came here to work every day with COVID-19 patients. And you're literally risking not only yourself, but you're risking your family at home so that we could take care of others who right now can't take care of themselves. Wow.
Mind-blowing.
What a mind-blowing, but not hard to do. Not hard to do. So what I love about this book is that it dispels a lot of the myths around leading with gratitude and just being a grateful leader. And then it gives you specific things that you can do. And I haven't quite gotten to that part, but I know these guys enough to know that you need to be specific with your gratitude, you need to be timely with your gratitude, and you need to be sincere with your gratitude. Yeah. And now is if you never believed in this stuff before, if you never believed in it before, now is the time to believe in it. Now is the time because you're going to pay for it on the back end. Believe me when I tell you that. I'm seeing it already. I'm seeing it already. Yeah.
Well, and we think that it's painful now, but it's going to be far worse if you didn't treat your team members right with a new normal. And it's going to be hard to replace them even more so. You know, we already had an economy that was hard to find workers or good workers, right? Good employees, good advocates, shared purpose. And that's not going to get easier when we come out of this. It's going to be even more challenging. So it's amazing. What you said, so many things that I loved. One of the things that I loved that I really want to make sure that people resonate with or really embody is the human element is what drives the business strategy, the business outcome. I just had a phone call with one of my clients earlier, and we were talking about their continued 2020 goals and reshaping them. And he was challenged with a phone call that was coming up that he had to have 4 new strategies, and his CEO had given him 3 of the 4 and said, "Hey, give me a call in an hour and tell me what your 4th one was." Well, the first 3 were around business growth, which was a little bit still surprising and to see that. But I said, "There, these are great, but you're not going to get any of them if you don't lean into your people." So, and then he was like, "Well, how do I quantify that?" I was like, "How do you quantify that?" Talk about the turnover in the engagement, in the deadlines are going to be made or missed. People who are still calling off from work at home because they're just completely disappearing. And this isn't going to last. Well, I say that this isn't going to last between now and the end of the year. You're going to have measurement points, and you're either going to be looking like a fool and you're going to be left out to the wind, or you're going to be one of the best, biggest, strongest teams, results oriented than you've ever seen because you leaned into the people. So I was like, you've got it all wrong if you're leaning into the numbers. You got to lean into the people. So, I mean, everything absolutely that you just said. I just finished doing a webinar, I think, for Penn Sherm, and we talked about in some of the early questions that came in, what people saying, I'm working more hours now, and that, their leaders are not being empathetic. Their leaders are not saying it's okay to not have the noises in the background. Their leaders are saying that, you still have to work the typical 9 to 5. And I'm like, they've got it all wrong. I mean, I hate to call out every person who's tuning into the webinar because I did it live on YouTube, but you're getting it wrong if you're doing that. You don't get on the phone in the morning and start saying, where are you at with this and that task? You get on the phone in the morning and said, how did you do last night after waking up the phone? How's your family today? Do you have everything you need in order to get done what you need to get done? Are you getting sleep? So
how are you feeling?
How are
you feeling about all this, right? Another one of my favorite F words, right? Feeling. People have feelings. And I think that as leaders, I keep saying this over and over again. I feel like a broken record. The days of the robot workforce, those have been long gone.
Yeah.
And people want to feel validated. And it's so funny. It's public news that my company is being sold, right? And I don't have a spot in the new organization. Okay. And I'm totally okay with that, right? I'm all set. Okay. But it was interesting because I had to go on Saturday to my office to pack up my things because, we all got deployed to work from home 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I get in there and I practically move into a place. I'm one of these people that brings like that whole bookshelf that you've got behind you full of books. Like I bring all my books, I bring all my resources, my pictures, because I spend so much time in the office. I wanted to be a place of Zen for me, right? Yeah. Which involved pictures of my friends. Like I've got a picture of you in my office, right? Like pictures of my friends, my family, like my dog, the whole kit and caboodle. So I'm packing up, getting ready to walk out. It's really eerie because the entire building is empty.
Yeah.
And when I was lugging out the last set of my boxes, I stopped in the lobby and I turned around and I looked at the sign of Virginia Premier, and I started to sob.
Oh.
I started to cry. And I started crying not because there's no place for me in the new organization, but I started to cry because the last 2 and almost half years of my career, I have had the privilege of leading an amazing team of human resources and organizational development professionals. And when I tell you, my success at Virginia Premier was large in part because of them. And I tell them that all the time. I have been successful these 2.5 years because of you, because of your skills, because of what you brought to the table, because of how you worked hard, right? We are so much stronger together
Yes.
than we are individual. And it took me a minute to kind of pull myself together. And then, you know, I wiped the tears away, and I walked out, and I tried to call as many of them as I could, you know, over the weekend and yesterday and today. And we had a virtual happy hour to celebrate the birthday of one of my team members. Aww. Last night. And I told them the story. I said, you know, I'm so grateful for the chance that you guys gave me to lead you. I'm so honored that I was able to serve you. And I'm often heard telling my team, guys, let's be clear. You don't work for me. I work for you. That is lost on so many leaders because they get caught, ridiculous. They get so caught up in the title and the power and the authority and the money and you know what? None of that matters if your team won't follow you.
You and I mean follow if there's nobody following.
There's nobody following you. You're not a leader. Let's be clear, right? Yeah. And following is not grabbing them and dragging them behind you, kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
And I just really, it was a moment for me, and a moment that I wish on as many people as possible, that they have that moment where they sit there and they come to the realization, I am nothing without the people that work with me. I am nothing without these people that I serve. And they need to understand that they have to express their gratitude. And they have to tell them every chance that they get, they need to express that gratitude for their teams, because what we were able to accomplish in this company in a mere 2.5 years, it's indescribable, the things that we were able to do, you know?
Well, you're a humble human being, and a humble person, and a humble leader. And I know, because I see people post and what they say to you, and I've read cards and messages that people have sent to you, is that you do get and you do lean into everything that you just said. I mean, that truly is you. There's no BS about it. You're, you know, let me be perfectly clear for you is, let me be clear when I think you're a rock star, and let me be clear when you're not being a rock star. And, you know, so I think that even balance is also equally, you know, important. And because we had a couple of books, everything you were describing, I just started reading this book. I was telling you guys, I was telling Elizabeth when we were talking about what are we going to talk about? Kevin Hancock. I got this book a few weeks ago, and it's called The Seventh Power. I think he's going to be a guest later. But everything that you just talked about, it's servant leadership on steroids. It's that complete understanding that it's like the center of you is beaming out to encompass all of you, and the you is the we. It is the collaborative. It is the unit. It is the collective. I sound like a what is that Star Trek thing? The collective, whatever is futile, the Borg or something. I don't know. Somebody listening screaming. They're probably screaming at the audio right now. It's called I think it's the Borg or something like hell. I don't know. Oh, I just. Anyways,
you said the H word.
I did. But anyways, it's talking about the unit and what's inside of us that beams out, and how we draw people in, and how we share the leadership. That it's not the one person, it's the sharing of the unit. And so I love all of that. I will name this episode of ours the Gratitude Hour, because I think that you've hit that on the nail. And also that need to be very specific, because when we know what people are thankful for us for, we tend to lean in to want to do it more, because we found out that it pleased them. You know, it made them happy. I mean, I know if I do something and my kids are grateful, and they're not always outwardly grateful, and I do something, well, then I try to do that more often. And for my husband as well. And so, you know, real relationships now, when you figure out what that sauce is, you want to lean into it. So I love the gratitude. I love the specifics, you know, around that. The other book I wanted to talk about that I have a little blurb in here, but I'm not talking about this book because I've got a blurb in here, but just ironic, deliberate discomfort is what we're in the midst of all right now. And it just so happens that this came out as well. So that's another good read that I think between these three books, you know, I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, you know, I'm sitting at home and I need something to read. I think these three books are three really good
There
books
you go.
that people need to tap
Hmm.
into or listen
Yeah.
to, you know, via audio. Before we do a wrap on today, is there anything that from a shared best practice? I know when we were talking last week or the week before, you know, one of the things that you had shared is how your team is sending out almost like a, if I recall correctly, like a daily newsletter. It's like a high level, this is where we're at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. It's just kind of like a keep you in the
Yeah.
know. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but because I haven't been part of the Culture Hour in quite some time, I am also responsible at my company for internal communications. So in addition to HR, OD, talent management, oh, there goes the pup, and all that stuff, I also own all of internal communications for my company. And so when we did this rapid deployment, and our Associate Chief Information Officer, I'm going to give David Summers a big shout out here because he just killed it in this. He called it Operation Work from Home is what he called this whole project. What we did was we wrapped around a lot of really strong communication. So he provided my comms specialist with a daily update. So when we first deployed everybody, he was like, hey, hello, everyone. Here's where we are. We've deployed these many people home. These many people are still waiting on equipment. These many people are having issues. Here's the process to get service from our IT folks. Here's the phone number that you need to call. Here's the link to the SharePoint site. Here's this, here's like, and it's all in one concise, very well-written document. And he sent that out literally every single day for the first 2 weeks after we had this massive deployment to work from home. Because imagine, almost 1,400 people, about, I'm going to say about 700 of them, maybe just under, were already either full-time or part-time work from home. He had to deploy everybody else.
Yeah.
And we have a very specific application process. We have a very specific review and approval process, policies, procedures, audits, because audits are important, performance management processes, training for employees on working from home, training for managers on how do you manage a virtual workforce. And this man, I mean, he and his team, I can't say enough great things about him right now, because the communication that he gave us to be able to deploy out to the organization. And so now what we do is we send 3 to 4 communications a day, because now we're in stabilization mode, right? Now his focus is the user experience. Are the systems slowing down? Are we having technical difficulties? Are the phones working properly, et cetera, et cetera? So what we do is every day we do still send out an update on where we are on technology, but we also send out a COVID-19 update. We also send out tips and tools and tricks for maximizing your productivity working from home with, you know, the wild 7-year-old in the background with, you know, like all of these things. So we really have ramped up our communication, because in a time of crisis, in a time of difficulty like this, you absolutely want to over communicate with your folks. And the feedback that we have gotten from our employees has been absolutely fantastic. And we work together as a team. I mean, this has been the most amazing teamwork I've seen in a very, very, very long time in any company I've ever worked for. I think, you know, just politics and bureaucracy just literally got chucked out a window in this. And I'm so proud of them, because that's what you have to do. You have to be able to pivot quickly in a situation like this.
Well,
so
that's what real leaders do. Real leaders are able to pivot quickly and have the agility, and I call it putting your ego aside in order to get whatever it is done. And I want to add, because I agree that you need to do the communication now more than ever, as long as it's good communication, which in your case it is.
Right.
Because if not,
Right.
it's noise, and it's dysfunctional noise and not optimizing a positive contagion. And then the other thing is that you guys very quickly, it sounds like from an outsider looking in, you quickly moved out of survival mode into stabilization mode. And that's just enormous. And I'm quite sure you as you go on, and other people as they come back into the new norm of the organization, hopefully they will carry in some of these best communication practices, and they don't just stop doing them. That's my other fear, or a little bit of my heartache and worry, is I hope that the things that people started doing and clicking because we were forced to live virtually, that they don't ditch everything that was good about it and just go back to the old way. I don't think that'll happen. I do think there are going to be some companies that are still so archaic that they're going to go back and tell immediately everybody, come into the office. No, we're not doing that anymore. No, you can't have flex time. No, you can't. And I hope that doesn't happen. My gut tells me
I
there's going to
know.
be some of that happening too, though. So anyways,
Yeah.
any final comments, thoughts, words to the wise that you want to share with the group today?
I think always, whenever I do any kind of public speaking and I talk to people about gratitude and so on and so forth, immediately I'm labeled as a soft leader.
No, anybody who knows you knows you're not soft.
And so I'm gonna leave you guys with a really funny, quick story. I was having a conversation with one of my employees the other day, and in the new role that I'm going to be taking on in a different organization, I'm hiring 2 positions, and somebody reached out to her and was like, "Hey, does this position report up to Elizabeth Veliz?" And she was like, "Well, yes, it does." And she was like, "Oh, that's great. I want to work for her. I really want to work for her." So my employee's telling me, "Oh, I told her what a great boss you are and how amazing you are." And I'm sitting there on a video chat going, "Oh God, please don't do that." And she was like, "Well, what do you mean don't do that? Like, you are an amazing boss." I'm like, "Okay. So if you're going to tell them the amazing parts about me, like, you have to tell them that I am very hard to work for." And she looked at me and she raised her eyebrow and she was like, "You are not hard to work for." And I was like, "Sweetie, that's because you don't mind being held accountable."
Yeah. Yeah.
I hold my people accountable. I will fire you if I have to fire you. And I have fired people. Okay. Now, before I get to that point, I set clear expectations. I coach, I mentor, I support, I give you all the tools and the resources and the support that you need to do your job. But at the end of the day, I am going to hold you accountable. And that is the part that I try to share with leaders. Being a grateful leader, being a servant leader does not mean you are a pushover, does not mean you let people get away with murder. It is quite the contrary. It is quite the contrary. And that is what I will leave the audience with. You can be both. You do not have to choose between driving accountability on your teams and being a servant, grateful leader for the people that you are privileged to lead, because it is an honor and it is a privilege to be a leader. Okay? But you don't have to pick between the two. You can do them both, you can do them well, and you can lead with the humanity piece. And I think that's the best advice that I can give anybody.
I love that, the firm and the fair. I was having, it's been probably a month ago, somebody was telling me a similar story where a previous employee had reached out to them and they were moving to the area and said, "Hey, are you hiring?" And the person who was telling me the story was really surprised. She was quite humble. You could tell she was a very humble individual. And she said the most astounding thing to me. And so I'm like curious, what in the world was it? And she goes, she told me that I was always clear about expectations. She told me what she expected out of me and what I was supposed to do. And she said, I was like shocked. It was like, well, yeah, doesn't everybody do that? And she's like, yeah, no, not so much. And I was like, you're right. They don't, you're
They
like,
don't.
why would you not tell your team, your direct report, this is what I expect of you? And you not only do that, but you also are clear with your upline too. You always ask if your boss hasn't been clear with you, you always ask, what do you need from me? What does right look like? What is the expectation? So
tell me what success looks like.
Exactly.
I mean, my CEO, she will tell you, our first one-on-one, tell me what success looks like in the next 6 months in this job. What are the top 3 things that you need me to focus on? 3. Well, we have all these other, 3. Can't be more than 3. Because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority.
That's right.
Nothing. So let's focus on 3. Let's perfect these 3, and then we'll continue to add as these 3 drop off. Now, that doesn't mean I ignore the rest of the business. I mean, as the head of HR for a I think at the top we were at $1.7 billion organization, you have to keep your eye on everything else. But your laser focus needs to be on a top 2 or a top 3, or you will fail. You will fail. It's
well, you don't have a litmus test. You can't keep up with priorities, and neither can your team. So anyways, all right. Well, it's so good to have you back on the show today. And so
I missed this.
We cannot have this many gaps. I know I get messages from our viewers asking when you're going to be back on. And so now we've at least accomplished that. So that's definitely a good thing. So just to wrap up, if you guys have questions, comments, other things that you want either one of us to weigh in on, we actually have another culture magazine coming out for this year, and Elizabeth is also going to, so now I've called her out, she's also going to submit a couple of her marvelous articles in lieu of the book being published quite yet. She'll give us some tidbits. We'll get her, even if it's just a checklist of her down and dirty top things that you must do as a leader. So we'll put her on the spot. So my name is Shelley Smith, and today I'm co-hosting with the lovely Elizabeth Veliz. And we thank you for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Be grateful, everybody.